All right, we are good then. Okay, so I'm Kate Miner, and I am the instructional coach at Shawnee Mission North, and I have with me here, or us here with us, are three members of our coalition coalition of racial equality, which is a student-run group at our building. And so we have Hananeel Morinville, Samantha Morinville, and Are Oni, right? Did I get that right? Are? Close. Okay, you correct me, please, because I in my head, I pronounce it completely wrong.
All right.
So please correct me.
One of the teachers told me it was Are. I don't even remember which teachers. And I'm like, I've been calling her Ori. And she's, so set us straight because we want to say it correctly.
Aura.
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 Okay.
Aura.
Thank you.
Aura.
Aura.
Okay. Yeah. Do you get tired of us asking you to teach us how to say your name? I wondered about that because we're told, we've been told recently, I've always kind of done it just with nature of being a librarian, but recently it's like, make sure you pronounce the student's name correctly, ask them to teach you how. But it's like, I just thought of that yesterday or Friday when I was helping a kid with a really long, unusual last name. And it's like, well, what if like 10 teachers, librarians, whatever a day are asking him how to pronounce his name? He's going to get kind of tired of that.
Okay, so Hananeel and group, let's I will let you guys introduce yourselves and kind of what you do as in core, and the title of this session is how can we create inclusivity, right? No. Yes.
How can we choose inclusivity? You're right.
Choose. Thank you. I knew it was a C word. It was choose inclusivity. Thank you. Okay.
So first, I'd like to thank everyone for taking their time to attend this panel. I know this is usually a really busy time for everyone, so thank you again for joining. My name is Hananeel. I'm a senior at Shawnee Mission North, and I am the founder of the Coalition of Racial Equality. I really founded that at the end of my freshman year, and we've been working towards that since sophomore year, and year after year, we just continue to grow and build and just continue to do many different things. Really, the objective of the Coalition of Racial Equality is to do our best to promote diversity, inclusivity, and equity, really, in an environment where typically that's typically not promoted. And I would say that since we've been founded, we've done a lot more work. We've been able to promote these different initiatives. For instance, we've donated books to schools in Uganda, donated books to schools and like inner city schools. Right now, we're working on a school supply initiative to donate school supplies to the most vulnerable students and most marginalized students in the Kansas City, Kansas area. And when we're talking about inclusivity, I think inclusivity and diversity, that work itself is so important, and it goes hand in hand, because when we're talking about diversity, diversity is a fact. It's always there. This panel itself is diverse, but inclusivity is a choice that we need to make each and every day, which is what we want to talk about today. How can we choose inclusivity in our modern day lives and our everyday lives?
Thank you, Hananeel. That's actually a really, really good introduction. Ladies, do you guys want to introduce yourselves too? Okay.
Hi, I'm Ara Oni, and I'm a junior at Shawnee Mission North. I joined CORE, it was BSU, my freshman year as well, after Hananeel started it the year before. And we also, Samantha and I also started a extension of CORE Coalition of Racial Equality college advising program that also focuses on inclusivity, but the different middle schools working on high school and college readiness, but for a diverse group of students, so we can embrace inclusivity and diversity, but at the middle school level.
I guess I'll go next. My name is Samantha Morinville. I'm Vice President of the Coalition of Racial Equality here at Shawnee Mission North. As Ori had mentioned, We both co-founded the Coalition of Racial Equality College Advising Program. It's basically just a program where we mentor 8th graders to prepare them for high school and later college, setting goals straight and reaching for the best. And I'm really happy that you all are here with us today.
Great. Thank you, guys. So before we open it up to questions from the rest of you, I want to ask our student representatives here. Could you tell us a little bit more about some of the other programs? You know, you guys were doing stuff during COVID and even before with supplies, and you've gotten donations from other groups. So tell us a little bit more about some of the other projects that you're working on in and outside of North.
Yes. So during the pandemic, I think that when the pandemic came, there are so many different factors that we had to think about as a community. My mind immediately started thinking about equity because I understood that so many students depend on these school meals, and that's really just how they get through their day. So I just started looking at ways like, how can I provide for the most vulnerable? How can I provide for the most marginalized? And I was able to secure a grant. And with that grant, I was able to purchase different like food supplies to ensure that those who typically wouldn't have a meal were being fed. So we were able to host 2 food drives during the pandemic to ensure that everyone had their needs being met. And outside of that, we're always trying our best to really spread CORE and spread its message and impact as a whole. And after our founding, Shawnee Mission Northwest, they founded their own sector very similar to CORE. Shawnee Mission East, they were able to expand. There's a lot more. And even Hawker Grove Middle School, they have a version of CORE going on right now, and they join our meetings each and every month. So that's some of the work that we were doing really before COVID, and some of the work that we're still doing now.
Yeah, if any of you are familiar with Kansas Teacher of the Year, their sponsor, Natalie Johnsonberry, is our Region 3 winner this year for secondary. And so she has helped get these girls connected with the right people. But it is truly a student-led group. These ladies and the rest of their group are very active in our community. One of the things that they've also done at our school is they secured some feminine hygiene products over, gosh, I'm not even sure when you guys were able to get those, but we now have those in every girl's bathroom in the school, little baskets, and then there's a QR code on a little poster next to the basket of hygiene products. So if anyone comes in that bathroom and the supply is low or empty, they hit that QR code and are able to fill out a little Google form that tells me to go refill it, because the girls graciously let me lead the charge on that because their sponsor is very, very busy, and I have a little bit more time to do that. So, but unless you guys have more to add, I'll open this up to questions from the rest of the group here.
So I love that you guys were targeting inequity during the time when schools were shut down during the pandemic, where it comes to meals and those kids that rely on school food. I know we have some local programs where they do backpacks for kids on the weekends so that they have food on the weekends when they're not at school. The other thing that concerned me, and it was a non-issue in my district, we're very small. We're on a military installation. And so thank God we were able to provide internet for all the kids. And one-on-one computers for every student. But I know a lot of districts struggled with connectivity issues, students who did not have internet access and how to provide that. I heard stories of kids having to go sit in the McDonald's parking lot and to try to do their schoolwork. So was that anything that you guys encountered in your area, or anything that was looked at as far as equity, during the pandemic as well?
I think that itself is a problem that was present at North and really present at every SMSD school even before COVID. I think just COVID shined a spotlight on what students were faced with. Tyler's House is a nonprofit organization that's really just getting their foot in the game right now, and I've been speaking to them a lot. And I'm sure soon everyone will know their name, but I know that they recently just rented out a place very close to North, and soon that will be a spot where students can go if they need internet access or need a meal or any of those other things. So our community, we are taking steps to kind of address that plight that many students are faced with right now.
And
awesome. I love that.
Yeah, and I can add, as Shawnee Mission, the district itself was able to purchase, oh gosh, I think we had about 500 hotspot devices that were handed out at the beginning of the pandemic. And I think we're still working on grants to provide more, but it was really an issue during our remote learning, and especially at the end of last year. But over the summer, we were able to combat that a little bit, and all of our schools enhanced their Wi-Fi, I believe, so that, I mean, it's kind of like driving to the McDonald's parking lot. If they park outside of any one of our buildings, they can get access as well, even though that's not really ideal. Oh, Sherry says that North only has 3 hotspots left.
Wow.
Yeah.
And one thing go ahead, I'm sorry. Oh, I was just going to say, one thing we noticed too is it's not always income inequity that causes them not to have internet access. We found that we had quite a few teachers who had issues because they lived out in the country or what have you, and they did not have sufficient connectivity to be able to do the things they needed to teach. And so they were having to come in and sit in the school parking lot to record their Loom videos and things like that for their instruction. So
I'm in a coffee shop right now because my internet went out at like 12:48. So I had to rush in. I wanted to go to the session. So, things happen to all of us with that. But you're right. It is, I mean, we've been talking as educators about the digital divide for decades, literally decades.
I have a question. So I work with elementary students, and one of the things that when I worked at a high ELL school, we had a high Hispanic community, and we had someone who worked at the high school level, and he worked really hard to try to get to the elementary kids because there were so many kids that felt so disconnected. But he couldn't do it all, he was trying to do so much. And I was just curious, if you had any advice or things that you wish you would have had that supported you at the elementary level that we can do better with, or maybe it is getting mentors in there. What would be your suggestion for building that bridge to the elementary level?
I can begin with that, but I can tell that Samantha and Ori also have something to add. I think in elementary school, something that would have been very useful to know or to have, I think it really would have been mentors. And I think like I come from a family where academics has always been something that's very important, something that's always been very prioritized. And I think the North area has done a very great job preparing me to go to a really great school. For instance, I'm attending Vanderbilt this fall, but I think really that all starts in elementary school, really at those schools that are like Title I elementary schools, because at Crestview Elementary, I didn't have that. So I think mentors is something that's really important. And I think something that's like, I think the general message that we send children is something that we need to always make sure like we're sending the right message. Because I remember when I told people like, oh, I wanted to go to this top 20 school, I was told I couldn't achieve that because of several different factors. So we need to ensure that we're constantly encouraging someone. Like if someone tells you they want to go to the moon, like sit and make a plan with them. So I think it's like just those little things are always so important in ensuring that students are successful and students are supported.
Yeah, and I can, oh, or sorry, I'll let you talk soon. And I can definitely agree with that. And that's one of the reasons why Or and I decided to start core college advising program, because we really wanted to just sit with these 8th graders and let them know that their goals and dreams are attainable. If you want to go to Harvard, you can do that. It's just really the time for them to just talk to you and they can like let you know what they want to do in the future. And I think that's the best way. Mentors is just the best way to go about it.
I agree with both of them. I think in a district that's really rightfully so focused on equity, it's really hard to focus on high achievements. And so when you're at a high level in elementary school or even beyond that, it's very hard to get that attention to take you to an even higher level or to nurture that that success that you're trying to gain. So, and also me personally, coming from a class of students that were all, none of them really looked like me, knowing that personally, and me immigrating from Nigeria, also no one talked like me. It was very hard to like fit in a way that I was also getting ready for the future. So it was like combating the present, not being able to focus on the future. So I think having mentors and people there to help you focus on how you can excel later in high school and middle school would be the best. And just like Samantha said, this is why we started this program for 8th graders, because we wanted to be those people and create an impact that'll last here way after we are gone.
And even just adding on to that, like with our theme of inclusivity, I think it's so important for like teachers and elementary school, like on the elementary school level, for us to push inclusivity as a whole. Because I know like the experience that I had, Samantha and Ore had, like our experiences differ from many of our other counterparts. So the way that we had to navigate and go around elementary school is very different from others, which is why inclusivity is so important. Because some of the experiences that I had, some of the things that I went through in elementary school, no one should have to go through that at 9 years old. So if we're prioritizing inclusivity, we're ensuring that maybe not every experience is the same, but every experience is essentially equal, if that's been well explained.
Hananeel and Samantha and Aura, I'm curious. So when you talk about mentors at the elementary level, would it help if students, our elementary students, our middle school students, does it help, or do you think it would help if we had a wide variety of, or a wider variety of students of color who are in the elementary schools, in the middle schools, mentoring? Because I know that in the past we've got, you know, our student athlete group that goes to the elementaries and they read to the younger students, but it's not very diverse sometimes, you know. I mean, and in a school like, in a community like the North community, is it more helpful to see that representation? Do you think as a 9-year-old student, Hananeel, for example, when you were at Crestview, would it have helped to have a mentor who maybe looked like you a little bit? You know, I mean, like, because we talk about diversity and so on, but a lot of our teachers, for example, I mean, you look at this group, and there's not, I mean, there's a lot of white in this group and of teachers, and we know, as I mean, statistically, that is one of the issues that we face across the country, is that you know, our our teachers often don't have the same representation, statistically, and in terms of color. But
Right.
mentors, do you think that would have helped as well?
I definitely think that would have helped. And I also think it's so important to start on the elementary school level, because I think a lot of my counterparts that are people of color, and most of them weren't molded or shaped to become leaders or to become mentors. And that itself is a problem that we need to begin to address. Why is it this the specific demographic that's molded to go to a certain school or to do a certain thing? And really, we need to ensure that everyone has those opportunities in SMSD, which is why it is important to have representation and all mentors. If I had seen that at 9 years old or 10 years old, I'm not exactly sure how that would have impacted me, but I know for sure I would have felt less alone, and like, okay, she's at this spot, she's a leader here, she's done it, so I can do it too. Because even as I navigated elementary school, middle school, and it definitely got better in high school, because I had Samantha, Ore, and other students like Glory there along with me who were facing this like similar things. It was a path that each and every one of us had to navigate on our own, and no one should have to do that or feel that way.
I agree, and I think it's worth noting upon reflection that like it's not that our 10-year-old or 9-year-old selves were sitting around thinking, oh, I wish I knew a Black girl who was going to Harvard, that would inspire me. But it's looking back and seeing that like if I had had that mentorship, that inspiration, I would know where to go and like what it took to become the leader that I am, instead of pursuing that on my own. And so these elementary school students, they don't know what they need, and I think it's important for us to provide them what they need.
That's well put.
So I have a question. Then, since we don't have those mentors right now, what can we do right now as a female white teacher? What can I do to help my 8-year-old third graders right now?
I guess it depends on like if you're an SMSD or not an SMSD. So I think like in Fort Worth, I think for instance, like your access would be a little different than someone in the SMSD. But I would say what you can do with third graders right now is start by goal setting, something as simple as goal setting. Like, okay, like where do you see yourself? Or the famous question, like, what do you want to do when you grow up? Something as simple as that. And then from there, I think we can move accordingly. And I can even help you do something like that. I know time's running out, but I think it's so difficult with like COVID and like getting people in school and like having that contact. But I think something like goal setting, seeing what everyone wants to do, like, and where they like see themselves in the future, and then motivating them and encouraging them that they can reach that and that it's tangible.
Thank you.
I think one of the things that I've been a little more intentional about is being sure to have a wider representation in the novels that we choose to read, things of that nature, so that it's more diverse, and so that my students can see themselves represented, whether they're Latina, whether they're Asian, whether they're African American, whether they're white, they're all seeing themselves represented. I wonder if, I know COVID is a difficult thing to be able to have, people come into classrooms or into buildings right now, but I wonder if with all the technology we have access to now, we could even have, person of the week or what have you, somebody come in and talk about, what they do, what their path was, how they got to where they are, and also have a diverse representation with those folks as well.
Yeah, I very much like that idea. I know that in elementary school, we would have like police officers come to talk to us and everything like that, and jobs and everything, but we never have like doctors or lawyers and everything else that these students are interested in. So if we like definitely push it out that like, what are you interested in? We can make this happen. We can definitely do that. And it just reminds me of our student panel that Or and I held, I think back in the month of February, where we just asked the students what they wanted to do in the future and everything. And we got students to come speak on this panel. Students at Vanderbilt, students at Stanford, students going to Stanford, all types of different students to come and speak to the students. And I think that would be a great idea.
I love that idea of having kids choose. Like, this is what I'm interested in. You know, Mrs. Reinhold, can you find somebody to come and talk to us about that who is doing it? That's a great idea, because that's exactly what they need to hear. Absolutely.
And I think the important part of that panel as well is that college students and high schoolers are cooler than adults. So like seeing an adult doctor, an adult lawyer will not help our students, but seeing somebody who wants to become the same thing as them and knowing what they're doing right now and knowing what it took them to get to where they are, to get to Stanford and Harvard, it helps our students way more than talking to grown adults.
I love that, because yes, you're right. Kids are definitely cooler than adults.
I totally agree. I'm also thinking, you know, we're talking about mentors and teachers, especially at the elementary level. I would say, you know, contact your administrators from the high schools and see if they have a group that could come talk to your students, even if it is over Zoom. You know, it's such a great, our high school students are such a great resource, and I, you know, they need those opportunities too to show their leadership. And just like these three here, I mean, they are not the only leaders in our building, but they have taken so much initiative over the last 4 years to become leaders within not only our school but also in our community. So I would definitely advise any elementary or middle school teacher to tap into those resources at the high school level. Call up your high school, if you have friends in high schools, in your attendance areas, or you know, at those the administrators, your athletic directors, whoever you can get a hold of, to get a student group together to maybe read to the kids, or maybe come in and give a talk about college planning or anything like that. I think that would be a great way to reach out.
I had a question. I had a question about how are you developing? I know you said you've been working on this program, developing it out, expanding on it. How are you developing leadership so that after you're gone, it will continue to develop and thrive as a program?
Yes, I think that like North itself has changed so much since I walked in freshman year. The environment and climate that was there freshman year is definitely not the environment and climate that's there now. And I think that to an extent, I've had a role in changing the North culture for the better. I'll talk about CORE, for example. I know that even after I leave next year and I'm not here, I know that Samantha and Ori are still going to take CORE to the next level. I know that when they're gone, my younger sister will be there. And I think it's so important to, like, even as your I heard this quote once that said that organization is about empowering others to do work. And I heard this and I thought about it and I applied it to my everyday life, that we're not doing this work for ourselves, we're doing this work for others. And the work that we're doing itself is greater than ours. So if you're involved in diversity, inclusivity, and equity work, and you're making it all about yourself, and you're the person who's wanting the praise, and people legitimately cannot function without you, then you're not going about it the right way. Even if I were to step down from CORE today, the group itself would still be successful. And so that's a question that groups have to ask themselves is, am I giving my members, am I giving my other exec board members, everyone, the tools to continue this work without me. And that's why it's so important to be so inclusive. In core, for example, we have that group me, and I don't make decisions just myself or just with other exec board members. I let the members be involved because it's supposed to be a collaborative group. It shouldn't be something that's run with just one person or 3 people or whatever that structure looks like. So as we go about our daily lives, as we go about our roles in these different organizations and groups that we're part of, we have to think about, are we giving people the resources, tools, and materials that they need to create this sustainable work after us?
Yes, and speaking for Hananeel, and is someone talking? I'm not sure. Oh, okay. Yeah, and just speaking for Hananeel and Ori too, like we do what we do because we would want someone to do it for us. If I was in 8th grade, I would want someone to start a college advising program for me. If I'm a freshman in high school, I would want to be a part of the Coalition of Racial Equality and seeing what these upperclassmen are doing to help me and make me feel included. As for the core college advising program, Ori and I we are currently juniors and we'll be graduating next year. We have been talking to an educational consultant who is just looking into our program, where it will be like a soon to be nonprofit organization. And from there, that's just where we go. I also have my younger sister who will also be taking over the program, but it will just be under that soon to be nonprofit organization.
Yeah, we really hope after the Morinvilles have all graduated from North, we'll still have all of these great, and honestly, I will speak from my perspective. These girls are leading by example in so many ways. Their presence in our building, and Hananeel is right. I do think that their efforts have really changed the culture of North. They have made themselves a force in the building, and they work so hard to promote inclusion and equity and beyond just our brick walls. They go in the community, and just like she was saying before, using their platform, and they have a social media presence. They have, they work with outside groups like Tyler's House. So yeah, I want to read a couple of the chat questions real quick before we miss them. Meg asked about what do you feel your teachers have done to promote this in your everyday classroom experience? Have they, in fact, and how?
As for our teachers, yes, I think our biggest supporter is really just our sponsor for CORE, Ms. Johnson Berry, and she's also the sponsor for the college advising program as well. She's just always there when we need her, always there to just support, and she's also been there since like I think Hannah's freshman year, at least when Hannah got to North and everything like that. So she's been very supportive to us and just always a lending hand when it comes to support.
I think inclusion itself is something that we hold a picture of it in our mind, of maybe like everyone holding hands, we hold this picture of inclusion in our mind, when in reality, inclusion itself comes in so many different forms. And there's no one way that a teacher should practice inclusion or can practice inclusion. For instance, I'll speak on behalf of Ms. Minor. Ever since she took over Pep Club at our school, it's become such like a much more inclusive environment. And we've been able to spread inclusion in our school. So it all comes from the top. And I think really at North, I think I have seen inclusion with many of my classes and with many of my teachers. And really, I think on a very fundamental level, it just looks like make students feel accepted, students feel supported, especially in areas that have historically alienated or excluded them. So I think North itself has done a very good job of prioritizing inclusion. I don't think we were always there, specifically freshman year, but again, we've made a lot of progress within these past couple of years.
I just want to chime in and say, because we've talked about Ms. Johnson Berry so much, I wish she would have been able to be here, but she's like so super busy. But I did not realize, and I think she's been here at North 5 or 6 years. Miss Minor
JB?
probably knows.
Oh, no, she's been, I think this is her 7th, maybe 8th.
Yeah, but I remember she said recently she's our only African-American teacher, whereas Miss Minor will remember, because we've been at North since the late 90s. We had, not that long ago, maybe 8-10 years ago, we had like 4 African-American teachers, and our district moves people around so much, and it has a lot to do with, not anything to do with their race. It was like, budget cuts, teachers wanting to, have other opportunities, not anything related to them. But I just, I was kind of floored, because actually when I started at North in the late 90s, there were a few African-American teachers, and then there were always more than one. And then I don't know at what point we only had one. I never noticed, but I was surprised by that. And I do think, I actually saw Miss JB yesterday at a function with several teachers, both from North and other places, and she ran into, I'm sure she'll tell you girls, her former teacher, who kind of her mentor. And so I think those mentorships in the classroom, and I hope that our district and state do continue to encourage, like any of you girls would be wonderful teachers. I know you have other aspirations, which is where you should go. But you could always come back to North and be a teacher if you want.
There was another good question in the chat that how do the students feel about the district boundaries drawn to create unequal ratios in terms of race and income? I feel like that happens a lot in a lot of different districts.
I think the boundaries itself transcend really SMSD and what SMSD is doing, and we need to start investigating what Kansas City is doing. Kansas City itself is still one of the most racially segregated, or if not the most racially segregated area in the United States. And we still see the impacts of redlining and segregation today. For instance, I only live, like where I live, actually, it's the boundaries itself, you can just look at the disparities. I technically live in an East area. Well, all the students there really go to East. And so, but I live 5 minutes away from North. And even then, East and North are only 15 minutes away from each other, even less than that. And East is ranked in the top 2% of schools in the United States. North isn't even coming close to that. So these are the questions we need to begin asking ourselves. Why is it that this school has more funding? Why is it that this school has like more resources? And it even transcends that and really goes into standardized testing. And I won't go on and on about that, but the issue itself is far deeper than what we're making it seem. Clearly students at East are going to have more resources to standardize testing materials, so they're going to perform better, their school is going to get more funding. At North, most of our students don't really have that. So the issue itself is like, I wish like if there was something like, I don't exactly know the best way to go about that, except we have to prioritize equity over equality, really. Not every SMSD school needs the same amount of resources. And I think that we need to move past the idea of equality comes first, because fundamentally, equality is always present. It's equity that's not present and equity that's not maintained. So I think SMSD has some work in that area that, we need to start making some noise about it, because we like North itself has so many qualified students, and I actually take a class over at East, so I see firsthand how things work. But we have work to do as a district, and it's up to us to be a catalyst for change, especially if we're on this panel, like listening to this discussion.
I definitely agree with what Hananeel has said, and I too take a class at East, and I think it's very important to note that these students are not smarter or better in any way than our North students. They just have more resources, and these boundaries, they set the standard for these schools. It's very normalized for these students to go out of state for different universities, for them to have higher test scores and everything like that. And so when our North students, they reflect upon East, they, in a sense, feel less superior to them. And so that further decreases our abilities in a way. And like Hananeel said, going there, you really see the environment that they've created, the academic integrity they've created. And that's just something that these boundaries have done. In no way have these teachers done it, these students done it. It's just these boundaries in the district itself.
You girls are on such the right track. As a teacher, I've said for years and years that funding should not be tied to either standardized testing, nor should it be tied to property taxes. All right. So if you have higher property taxes, you get more money, makes zero sense because you need less. And so it should be, your funding should be based on need to provide equity amongst all students in the nation. That has to start at the state level and also go up to the federal level. And just listening to you girls talk, I don't know what your aspirations are, but I'm telling you, you're the kind of people that need to go to the state and to the federal government and talk to them about that and make change. So, yeah.
I think Hananeel might be headed that way.
Yeah, along those lines.
That's awesome.
I was the one that asked the question because we have people like myself and maybe Ms. Miner have been loud about specifically our district's boundaries. And I know our district leadership all the way up to the superintendent and our school board, they are invested in equity, but those boundaries, they talked about it a few years ago, switching the boundaries. So there was more, the ratio of, socioeconomic and all that was more equal. So you didn't have like two schools that were really rich, two schools and not diverse, two schools that were lower socioeconomically and more racially diverse. And then one school that's kind of half and half, that they were gonna, because I live in Lawrence now and they draw their boundary, they only have two high schools, they draw their boundary diagonally. So they have that ratio, and there's probably a more appropriate term, but that ratio that's equal. So you don't have like the rich school and the poor school. Because I know Hananeel and I hope, it really angers me that somebody's telling you you can't go to Vanderbilt, even though not only did you get in, I think if I'm correct, you got a full scholarship, full ride. And it's just, I see North kids getting, and I know it's not all about North, but, kind of like, oh, you're a smart student, you should go to one of these other high schools. And then, oh, you're an at-risk student, maybe you would be better fit. In our district decades ago used to really push that. It's gotten better. But we do have work to do, and teachers are being loud about it. And I'm hoping that students and parents and other community members are loud about it.
And Ms. Crawford, I think you raised very excellent points, but I think it's important to point out that equity is the start. Really, the end is an entire culture change that we're seeing, because within equity, we're seeing issues of brain drain. And I know personally, I think each and every one of us on this call, all of us thought about transferring over to East. So that itself is like I don't know what North would have been if I transferred and or Samantha had come with me. So I think those are problems itself. And even then, even if SMSD redefined their boundaries for next year, we'd still see issues like schools like East continue to thrive and schools like North suffer to make ends meet, which is why struggle to make ends meet, which is why it's so important to redefine the bounds of our culture. And I think that North itself, we have it's gotten better, of course, but we have a way to go with redefining our culture and prioritizing things like academic excellence and all of these different things, because I think it's a bigger issue at whole, but I think it's a disservice to our teachers when we have so many of our students who are internalizing this culture of apathy or this culture of not doing well. So equity is the start, but a culture change itself is the finish.
I think it would be interesting for you to, or someone, it sounds like you're on top of things, but to kind of look at what exactly are those differences? What is it that they have at East that you guys don't have at North? What are they doing at East that you guys aren't, having done for you at North? And how do we go about getting those things for you guys? You know, what will it take to ensure you have all the resources at North that East has to be just as successful as they are? Because like you said, that's not a student thing or a teacher thing. That's a district thing. That's district administration looking and saying, here's what, you know, we have two schools. What did you say? 15 minutes apart, and they're worlds apart as far as resources are concerned, and as far as, you know, the tools needed for success, et cetera. But knowing exactly what that is the first step, because then you can take that directly to the administration and say, here it is. Here's what we don't have. Here's what they do have. And here's what we need.
Well, and as Hananeel was saying, in some ways it goes beyond resources. It's culture. And you know, Sherry and I have both worked at North for over 20 years, and the culture in general, I think across beyond North and beyond anywhere, and others you may have recognized this too. In a lot of ways, culture has shifted away from high achievement and academic excellence in a lot of schools that are predominantly or who have more economic students in a low economic backgrounds. So it is something that we have to address, not only in terms of like what we have, but it's how we as teachers and as administrators in our buildings, how we treat academic excellence and how we view the abilities of our students, not just our students of color, but our students who come from poverty, and changing that mindset for ourselves is tough when we have kind of expected less for a number of years. There was one other question in the chat that I wanted to address, because Kristen, I think you asked it about Career Day, and I just wanted to, you know, just give our school a shout out. We do have a Career Day. We didn't have it last year, and we're not having it this year because of COVID. But that is something that, as the instructional coach, that I've worked with a group of teachers and counselors on doing for the last few years, and I would really like to, and this is just a plug, ladies, I would really like to get more businesses involved and people from local businesses involved that have more representation, not just our African American populations, but beyond that. We have, you know, there's some great career and job opportunities through our Career Day, but we need to widen the scope beyond just service jobs and things like that. We need to get some people in there that are high achievers themselves, not just, you know, local businesses, but like, you know, really we need some more professionals that
Yes.
that represent the many backgrounds in our city. So
I was just thinking kind of what you were saying, and then when we were talking earlier about the elementary students needing to see students who are aspiring to do those careers, what if you could also do like a Career Day with the elementary, and then this high schoolers who are, that's what they want to do, that's like they can prepare stuff for that career, and then they can take that to the elementary school and have a Career Day at the elementary school where the kids can go around and talk to them about what they are wanting to do.
I love that idea. We, I don't know if these girls have done it because they're in the like Smarty Pants APIB classes, But we have part of the curriculum is our students, sometimes it's seniors, sometimes it's juniors, researching careers and even doing presentations. So it would be easier for them to take that over to or even invite elementary in under normal times. And I wanted to add, our district has gotten, because I've been on this kick about boundaries for years, it's gotten better. And there is a commitment as far as the haves and have-nots, where they do funnel some money over to us for things that other schools have that we don't have, and give us grants and things like that. But it's not quite the same as like when you have $100,000 one night fundraiser at one school, and then you have the other school that's like, my library cappuccino day is funding the PTA, so it's a little different.
Right. And that, I guess that was more my point. I mean, I'm not talking about when I say, what do they have versus you? You probably all have computers, right? You probably all have the curriculum and those things. I'm thinking more of, when you're in a more affluent neighborhood and you have kids that live in, $100,000 homes, they don't go to school hungry, or they don't go home and go hungry. They have, the clothes they need. If they're going to go to an interview for a scholarship, they have a nice outfit to wear. Those kind of things. Like our local high school, we only have one high school because we're small, but so we have a diverse community. We have, people who are kids of Army officers or, whatever. And then we have, kiddos that struggle in families that are, below the poverty line. And so they have things like, they have a closet with clothes that were donated. And so if a kid needs a nice outfit to wear for whatever purpose, they can go and get what they need. They do backpacks, from elementary on the weekends to make sure that kids have, food and they're not hungry. Those kinds of things. That a lot of times the equity isn't necessarily in the school. It's not the teachers, it's not the materials, it's not the curriculum. It's more of what backs it up. If you're hungry, if you're tired, if you're, you don't have what you need, then that's going to be harder for you to perform at the same levels, that kind of stuff.
I will say that at North, we have what's called the one-stop shop. And Amy, it kind of reflects what you're talking about in Leavenworth. We have clothes for kids, just regular street clothes, school clothes, but we also have clothes for interviews, and like our debate closet has clothes, shoes, ties for some of our debaters who maybe don't have enough money to get their own clothes. So we have donations as well. We also have food and school supplies and feminine hygiene products and things like that in our one-stop shop. And so, I mean, we're doing some things like that too. And I think a lot of schools do have things like this, and the backpacks, the weekend backpacks, the summer food distributions, like Shawnee Mission does food distribution all year, and medical clinics and things like that. So I think schools are really doing a lot of the jobs that other parts of our society are neglecting. So I think we as teachers, as educators, see it a lot, that the student need and the student the inequities in our student population. So it's really helpful to have student groups like this who are working in the community and who actually, they're our future leaders. They're leaders in the school and in our community right now, but in the future, these ladies and their counterparts are going to be leading our country and
Yeah.
it's great to have their voices be heard
Mhm.
in panels like this, so that maybe we can start encouraging our students outside of this group to start doing the same, to encourage community outreach and high achievement.
Well, and so that they can get, you know, because I know some of their aspirations, but that they can be elected politicians at the local, state, and federal level, so that these changes that, you know, Hananeel talked about with the redlining in Kansas City area, outside of our district, and, you know, yeah, those things. And people have been wanting this change for decades, but there's also people out there that don't want these changes. They don't want their, you know, property values to go down, and, you know, the whole spiel on that we've heard over and over again. And it's ridiculous that, you know, obviously these girls are much more articulate than I am, and can, you know, do great things. And that, you know, in some ways our school and district and state have let them down because we haven't provided some of these things that they have brought up. So.
Yeah, I'm excited just listening to them speak today. I can't wait to see what they do in the future. I think they're pretty fabulous.
I'm biased, but I agree.
And there's a few more like them.
Yeah, there
They
are.
mentioned, I think Hananeel or Samantha mentioned Gloria Obie, who's, and I'm sure she's off doing who knows what today, but she couldn't be here. But, you know, just a rock star. And it's really interesting that Samantha, Hananeel, obviously are sisters and have older sisters. And then as does Glory and RA have older siblings. And those siblings have, I'm sure, been their mentors, but who were their, you know, oldest siblings' mentor. So it's been fun to watch these families come through. So I've enjoyed that.
Aura and Samantha and Hananeel, I want to thank you guys so much for agreeing to be part of this today. Do you have any final words for the good of the cause? I know we're running over time, but I just appreciate you guys so much.
Of course. Thank you for inviting us. I guess my final takeaway from this panel today would be that our words and our energy, we have enough like energy to really positively impact someone's life or to negatively impact someone's life with something as simple as our words or our everyday actions. Really, by being on this panel, we've all agreed to be a catalyst for change, not only in our communities, but wherever there is an advocate that's needed. So moving forward, we not only have to think about how we can choose inclusivity, but we always have to think about how we can choose to be an advocate for those who tend to be voiceless and not able to speak for themselves. So thank you again for having me. I really enjoyed this time.
Yeah, thank you for having us here. I just like it how we're all just here to advocate for change and all. And I feel like now that we've brought awareness to this, it's just time for action. What can we actually do? Having an action plan for what is next. I appreciate it. Thank you all so much.
Again, thank you guys for having us, and thank you guys for listening to us, because I think that's the most important thing, is that we just need to be listened to. And so with all of the voices that have been heard, the most important thing is effort that follows. So thank you guys.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, girls. I'll see you at school tomorrow.